Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I realize we've got finals tomorrow, and I do appreciate all of our scholar athletes and scholar academic winners are with us this evening. I do want to announce that following our special presentations and our district update, we are going to break for a few minutes to allow people to leave and go study for finals or enjoy the rest of their evening. So that being said, we will go with roll call.
Yes, all board members are present and accounted for, and we have a quorum.
Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to begin this evening with our special presentations, and I'd like to call to the podium Mr. Inskeep. And we'll begin with the girls cross-country state champions and then proceed with the boys.
Thank you, Mrs. Spannenberg and members of the board. It's my honor and privilege to be before you again this evening to recognize some outstanding achievements this evening from our cross-country program. Tonight we are honoring our girls cross-country state championship team and our boys cross-country state championship team. I can't say enough about both of these programs, how hard they work. We have over 100 kids participating in each the boys and girls programs, and that's an unbelievable number when you compare that against other programs throughout the state, and we're very blessed to have some great leaders with them as well. So at this time I'm going to have members of our girls cross-country staff come forward and members of the team as well, so we can do some introductions, and I'll say just a few brief words about their accomplishments this year. The girls cross-country team won their 6th straight state championship this year. That sets a new record in the IHSAA, and that's a very impressive thing, mainly because Carmel High School has really dominated this sport since it started about over 35 years ago. So for us to set a new record, and anytime we do something for the first time, that speaks volumes about this coaching staff and also the kids that have come through before this group this year, and they just added to it. So with us this evening is head coach Mark Ellington, who is a teacher at Clay Clay Middle School. I'm showing my age when I say that, sorry. And also with him this evening is Caitlin Engel, who is a teacher in our district, Katie Kelly, who's a teacher in our district, Andy Dalton as well. So we are pleased all the hard work that these guys put in as well, countless hours in the summer and year-round to make sure that these girls are getting the best training possible and just some great role models as well. So without further ado, I'm going to have each of these young ladies that are here come forward and introduce themselves, tell their grade, and also if they are a senior, what their college plans are after this year. Also, I want to point out as well, we had some great achievements at the state meet. Sarah Leinheiser, who's a junior, was the individual state champion, and we have not had very many of those throughout the history of Carmel High School. And she also finished 8th at the at the Foot Locker this past weekend in San Diego, and also competed out at the this group competed at the Nike National Cross Country Meet, finishing 8th place as a team out in Oregon earlier this month. So just awesome against the best of the best. So without further ado, I will have them come forward, and then if you can just step in front where the board members are at, and they will shake your hand. Thanks. Grade level.
Okay. Okay, I'm a junior and Christina Geisler.
I'm Megan Kress. I'm a senior and I'm running at St. Louis University next year.
I'm Maddie Dalton and I'm a sophomore. I'm Daphne Boom and I'm a junior. I'm Rachel Anderson, I'm a junior.
I'm Stacy Morzov, and I'm a senior. I'm going to be attending IU next year.
As you can tell, a lot of underclassmen there, and we're very proud of them, and they represent Carmel High School very well. And I would also mention they face a lot of competition as well within their team just to get those varsity spots, so it's a major accomplishment to even run at the state meet, so appreciate all that they do. At this time, I'd like members of our boys cross-country team to come forward and their coaching staff. As they're coming forward, just a few words about their season. State champions this year after state runners-up a year ago. Just a tremendous season. And this group had some setbacks as the season went on with some big team members that had key roles that we anticipated being part of this team this year, not being able to finish with injuries. So we had some young guys step up, some freshmen step up into the varsity lineup at the state meet and throughout the season, and can't say enough about what they did and how hard they worked as well. They just had a dominating performance in Terre Haute back on October 31st. And this group as well competed at the Nike Regional in Terre Haute in November, and then out of that group, senior Ben Veach, who was the individual state champion, back-to-back winner, and the first individual cross-country state champion from Carmel High School in our history, which says a lot. Ben also competed in the Nike National Meet out in Oregon, where he could only finish second. And then he went to San Diego in the Foot Locker and finished third. So I'll tell you, these guys are very impressive, and if you ever drive up and down Main Street between 4 and 5, you know how hard these guys work every day, and it's not just during the season, it's year-round. And they get it done in the classroom as well, and I can't say enough about how much they are into the team accomplishments and how they represent our community. It says a lot about them. This evening, I'm going to have each of them come up and introduce themselves. The girls led the way, so the pressure is on here. But I'd also like to point out these seasons were so great this year that we went ahead and tore down the locker room after the season. So just a walk-off on that one. So boys, if you could come forward and do the same as the girls here. Grade level and your name.
Thomas Gastineau, freshman. Kelton Bates, freshman.
I'm Evan Bouye, and I'm a junior.
Trey Harris, sophomore.
Ben Miller, sophomore.
Ben Veach, senior, and I'll be going to Indiana.
Drew Watson, junior.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, we have our district update, which is our Spotlight on Excellence. And we have with us Miss Jessica Tubbs, who will call to the podium. She's going to be talking about the Indiana Outstanding Middle School Educator Award, Music Educator Award.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. I'm honored and privileged to be here tonight to recognize Creekside Middle School Director of Choirs Nicole Johnson, who's been named this year's Indiana Music Education Association Outstanding Middle School Music Educator of the Year. Say that fast 3 times. Prior to joining the Creekside family, Nicole taught in Michigan City, Westview, and Greenfield Central School Systems. She's been a member of the Creekside family for the last 6 years. During her time as a Wildcat, she has more than doubled the size of students enrolled in choir. She has challenged students to increase their music literacy levels which is evidenced in the skills students leave her class with at the end of each school year. Her students consistently earn superior ratings at Music in the Park and ISMA solo and ensemble contests. Nicole has received a CCEF teacher grant and has been recognized as a CCS honor roll teacher several times over. In addition to being the director of our school choirs, she is also the musical director for Creekside's fall musical productions. The time and commitment that she dedicates to our students each fall as they work to deliver performances that rival those of many high schools is simply amazing. We are so fortunate to have her on our staff. I could go on about all Nicole has, and we know she will continue to accomplish in her role as choir director, but the words shared about her from her colleagues and students speak volumes. When writing Nicole's nomination for the award, Wendy Higdon, director of bands at Creekside, shared, and I quote, "One cannot observe her lessons without learning something new about how to be a better teacher. I frequently encourage both music and non-music teachers to watch her in class, and when they do, they all come away stating the same thing. She is a rock star." When asked, students were eager to share about the impact Nicole has had on them. "Mrs. Johnson is the funniest, coolest, and most energetic teacher I have had. Even when she stays all day and all night teaching and working with Tri-M and teaching the musical, she pours every ounce of effort and creativity to make choir a fun but informative learning experience." Another student said, "Mrs. Johnson has definitely made an impact on my years here at Creekside. My favorite thing about her is that she always believes a student shares the talent, and if they believe it, they can achieve it." And finally, from yet another student, "Mrs. Johnson is an amazing teacher with an immense amount of passion. She never gives up on anyone and works to help everyone become a successful person in life. She's not just a teacher, she's a life changer." We are so proud and excited for Nicole and can't wait to hear about her experiences when she accepts the award this January. Please join me in congratulating this year's Indiana Music Education Association Outstanding Middle School Educator of the Year, Nicole Johnson.
Thank you so much for allowing me the privilege to be here this evening, for the invitation from the school board and my administrators. I think the only thing I can say is how honored I am to receive this award and what a privilege it is to daily work in such a wonderful environment. My Creekside family has just challenged me day in and day out to grow as a music educator. The students and the families here are so incredibly supportive and just continue to give me the words of encouragement I need on a daily basis to give the energy to those middle schoolers who have so much to give back. Especially thankful to Wendy Higdon, my department head, for nominating me, my colleagues there that work with me, and to my husband, who is also in the field of music education and has been my sounding board since our freshman year of college. So I'm very grateful for the support and for being here in the Carmel Clay School District. Thank you so much.
And next on our agenda, I invite Mrs. Marlowe to the podium to introduce to us the Siemens Competition Regional Individual Winner and the National Final Scholar recipient.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. It's an honor to recognize Vikas Maturi for winning the Region 3 Siemens Competition in Math, Science, and Technology and being one of 6 students in the country to advance the national competition in Washington, D.C. last week. Vikas came away with $13,000 of scholarship money for his project entitled, excuse me if I botch this, Engineered Intraocular Injection Guide, Pain Reduction to Ophthalmic Disease Treatment. I'll let him explain that in a moment. While Vikas worked a summer job at the Midwest Eye Institute, he became motivated to develop a product that could reduce or eliminate pain from pre-injection procedures for ophthalmic patients. And as one of the judges at the regional competition at Notre Dame said, quote, he has single-handedly advanced pain reduction for patients. I think it's also worth mentioning that not only is Vikas one of our unbelievable science students at Carmel High School, but he is also president of the Tech Hounds Robotics and implements STEM outreach initiatives, including organizing last year a conference for women in engineering. So please welcome Vikas Maturi.
Firstly, thank you so much to the board for nominating me for this award. It's really an honor. I was asked to give a brief description of my project. So basically, I helped design a device that's called the Intraocular Injection Guide that reduces pain in the treatment of different eye diseases. So when you're giving a normal eye injection, the needle is actually just put directly into your eye. But to make that safe, you have to put a device called a lid speculum into your eye as well, and that actually just pries your eyelids apart. What happens is that lid speculum is actually oftentimes much more painful than much more painful than the injection itself. So I designed a device that actually eliminates the need for that speculum and actually can just be put directly on the eye. So it actually allows the injection to be given through the tube, which is the device, and allows the eyelids to go up the sides of it. So there's not the pressure of them being pried apart. Yeah. So thank you.
Well, I applaud, actually the entire board and administration applaud each of you, our administrators, our teachers, professional educators, as well as our academic and athletic scholars this evening. With that, we're going to pause for a few minutes. If you'd like to stay, by all means, please stay and enjoy the rest of our meeting. But if you'd like to head out and maybe enjoy the rest of the evening with a study, that would be fine too. So with that, we will watch The Voice, yes. So we're going to pause for a few minutes. I guess we'll resume our meeting. Small crowd, if you'd like to join us in the front row, come on down, Brian. Next on our agenda, we have consent. May I have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Yes, please.
I just noticed that there were some gifts there, and I'd just like to thank those that have donated to Carmel Clay Schools and acknowledge Sam Milosevich and Revolution X LLC and the Bank of America for helping us out. Appreciate their help.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other comments? All in favor of? Aye. Next on the agenda, we have action items. First action item is deletion of policy 4410.01, compensation for part-time staff. And with that, we'll turn to Pam.
Yes. This one was brought to our attention at the last meeting for its first reading. This is the second reading. And it is recommended that we delete this policy because it is a duplication of policy 4400 100, and we did not see a need to put this policy in place.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have adoption of policy 5531, student assistance programs.
Okay, this policy, we have deleted quite a bit of the language because this is in administrative guidelines, and so we don't need to have it in policy. We did put in educational programs have been established to ensure a productive learning environment. Then we added the word district instead of school, which makes more sense. And the superintendent shall develop and implement administrative guidelines, which have been listed here again, and we do not put administrative guidelines within a policy, we just reference them in a policy.
Thank you. Okay, microphone is now on. Next on the agenda, we have the school board meeting dates for 2016. We reviewed these at our last board meeting. I do want to point out there's one slight change to what we had reviewed before. It was brought to our attention that because of the National School Board Association meeting in April, we had 2 board members who would not be at the meeting on Monday, so we shifted that meeting to Tuesday, April 12th. Other than that, everything on here is what we had before. With that, may I get a motion to approve the new adopted, or the new 2016 calendar dates for board meetings?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Next on the agenda, we have amending our 2016 legislative priorities, and with that, we turn to Mrs. Hackett.
Microphone on? Okay. Learned. Dr. Wall and I, as you know, have been meeting with legislators to discuss our 2016 legislative priorities. And number 4, as you can see up there, has to do with collective bargaining and the use of memorandum of understandings. As I reported during my last legislative report in November, the feedback we've been receiving is not really supportive of this, and actually legislators gave different theoretical and actual examples of possible unintended consequences for us to think through. And Nick, I think, talked about one last time, which is one of the main ones, was Anderson School Board and their exclusive representative who got together and passed a 10-year teacher contract to kind of, the thought was to skirt some bargaining laws as they were all changing, which might have helped on some things, but then it made those teachers ineligible for the performance grant money. So there's unintended consequences on both sides, and they really asked us to think this through. So Nick talked to Brian Smith of ISBA and asked for some background information on this, since it was one of their, it initiated with as an ISBA legislative priority. And really, Brian said that their other collective bargaining priority, which had to do with more flexibility on formal bargaining times, was really their more initiative, and they were kind of de-emphasizing this one. And so then that's why I brought up last meeting to you to think about it, because I want to make sure that our priorities are not necessarily just our priority at one point, but that it's really the best thing for everyone. So I put that out there to you. Well, I guess I'll make a motion, actually, to remove Goal 4 from the Carmel Clay 2016 legislative priorities, as you see them up there. That's my motion.
Thank you, Tricia. May I get a motion to approve?
Well, I moved, so.
May I get a second?
Second.
Discussion? Yes.
I just really have a comment as opposed to discussion item. I think after we approve these, assuming we're going to approve them, that we should just mark on the new ones revised as of December 15th, so that going forward, it's clear that these are the new ones for this session.
Good point.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Tricia, thank you for bringing this forward. I think it just goes to show that we are always, we look at our legislative priorities as well as our strategic plan as a living document. And as things change, we also need to be flexible. So thank you.
Agree. Mm-hmm.
Then, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Amendment passes. Next, we have our superintendent's report.
I just wanted to let the board know, I know you're aware of this, but just talk for a minute about last Thursday, December 10th, President Obama signed into law the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is a continuation of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act that was signed by President Johnson in 1965. And in his address, I thought it was noteworthy that he said the value of education is key to economic opportunity and is a civil right. I think that's noteworthy and worth stating again. Amy and I have taken a look at some of the initial briefs on the unpacking of Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015. And one of the things that we want to be mindful of, we've been talking about, there's a component in there about maintaining important information for parents, teachers, and communities related to school students' testing and assessment. It still indicates that students in grades 3 through 8 must be tested, required 2 tests in reading and math per year for students in grades 3 through 8, as well as science tests given 3 times between grades 3 and 12. What we want to be is very engaged in those discussions with our state legislators about what that's going to look like, because that's now a state responsibility. So it's really exciting to hear that being moved from the federal level to the state and local level, because, and I'm not trying to steal your report, Tricia, but we've heard over and over again the support for minimizing the amount of time that standardized testing is taking away from instructional time from our senators and representatives, and so we share that interest with them, and it's exciting to hear this opportunity in the new Every Student Succeeds Act to move things more to the state and local level. So we want to keep you informed on that. We want to stay very engaged, and frankly, the meetings that Tricia and I have had, we've touched that on every level. I mean, yesterday's op-ed in the Star, quoting Senator Cruz and Senator Kenley, it's as if we were in the room, because we heard all that the last month in our discussions with them about minimizing that standardized testing component. So we want to be very actively engaged in what that testing is going to look like twice a year, and hopefully be able to let them know we already have that, because we do, with our NWEA that's ongoing in our elementaries and middle school. So very exciting to see that shift. A bipartisan applauded act. I think the president referred to it as a Christmas miracle. So I just wanted to put a plug in for that, because that came about last Thursday.
Thank you, Dr. Wall. Any questions, comments? Okay, then we'll move right along to our board member report, and that brings us to the legislative update. Mrs. Hackett.
Which Nick just shortened slightly, so that's cool. Dr. Wall and I have met with, over the past few weeks, continued our meetings. We've met with Representative Shabley, Senator Cruz, who's chairman of the Education and Career Development Committee, Speaker Bosma, and Representative for Senator Donnelly, Brandon Herzog, who works in the Indiana area for Senator Donnelly. So I thought what I'd just do tonight is kind of go over our goals really briefly and what are some common threads we've heard. Priority 1, A, B, and C all have to do with referendum. And in general, legislators are sympathetic that our funding is tight, and local state legislators are understanding that the funding has been disadvantageous to growing suburban schools over the years. And the General Assembly addressed that slightly last year, but not in whole. Just want to give them just a little credit there. However, really more accurate ballot language is the only area where we are finding broad-based support for those three areas. Another common area in there, though, which is kind of uncanny, is Nick usually asks, why a 7-year limit for referendums? And no one knows exactly why. It was basically a compromise with no logical reason for 7 years. And what we're finding now, as some of you know, is that by not being an even number, it makes us fall not on an election year, which causes districts needing to re-up the referendum's difficulties, but also those in charge of those special elections at the state level. So that's probably something they're going to look at some point, not in time for us, I don't think. Priority 1D, we've noticed a general shift more towards flexibility. We hear that word a lot, but it seems to mean something different from each person. Sometimes it's more state control over testing, sometimes it's more district control over testing, sometimes it has to do with flexibility in budgets, and sometimes even school choice. So those conversations are all over the place a little bit. Priority 1F, there is wide support for a permanent ability to pay the utilities, or some of the utilities, and insurance from the Capital Projects Fund. This bill, I believe, has an author at this point, but we've heard a couple different names, so I'll just keep you posted once we get that solidified. Nick hit a lot of our priority number 2, wide support for utilizing formative tests to a greater degree and de-emphasizing summative tests like ISTEP Plus. With the federal level new ESSA, that has kind of pushed everyone on that path, so that's really nice. In talking with our state legislators, it looks like we should look at this. They're looking, I don't think, at short range, but a long range fix, which means don't look for a big bang this legislative session, but the good part of it is they're really looking at the whole aspect of this. And now, with the federal guidelines changing, it does free them up a little bit. So it's kind of, I think, coming all together at a good point for us. Of course, I would be remiss not to mention the latest ISTEP scoring mishap that's come to light. So again, although we don't like to hear those kind of things, they're all just kind of adding evidence of why this really needs to be looked at. I read this morning that Representative Veining plans to introduce a fast-track bill to decouple ISTEP Plus scores with teacher evaluation. So I think those are the kind of short-term things we'll see this session, and the longer fix coming maybe 2017.
Can I ask you a quick question on that? Now, because I did not see that article. So is that temporary? Is that just for this year? Or is he going to uncouple this for long-term?
You know what? I had the same question, so I reread the article. It sounded like at least 1 year.
Okay.
So I wouldn't think it'd be more than 1 year, because I think there's so many other things down the pipe.
Okay. Then they'll reevaluate how they can.
And his bill didn't, I didn't see the bill, I just saw
Right.
the article, but didn't talk about school grades or things like that, just said that's more complicated, so it'd be a different issue. Whether
Okay.
that'll be another bill, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Our priority 3, all legislators seem to understand that the transportation budgets get hit particularly hard when other budgets are protected from circuit breaker losses, but there doesn't seem to be agreement on how to handle this. There even seems to be some thought out there that it might just kind of work its way out naturally as we move away from the recession. So I think there'll probably be a bill on this, because there is an interest and people seem to be focused on it, but what it's going to ask for, we can't really tell. And then our last priority, as you know, we've been talking with our legislators. They've kind of helped us talk through and think through this, and that's why we brought this up for the whole action item. So I think that's a good idea to not even, talk about that area really, because sometimes that conversation leads to whole other areas. And always we end our meetings by asking what we can do for you. And we hear some really interesting things when we do that, but that really adds to the give and take, I think. All have expressed an interest in keeping communication open, and even some have requested Nick be in contact with them, or can they be in contact with him during the session. One of those, actually, Brandon the representative from Donnelly passed on the information of their education person so that Nick can contact. He's going to email, introduce them, so that Nick can really be a part of formulating it, or helping to formulate with our state on how we take those new guidelines, just what Nick said, and how can we make it work for Indiana and the kids of Indiana with the testing in particular. And then the other common thread with what can we do for you, we hear is a real desire to elevate the perception of teaching to where it once was. Different ideas have come out, from helping teachers with student loans to helping teachers obtain credits to teach dual credit courses, but always a general knowing that they're valued and how to get that going again. So that's led to some great conversation. And then finally, several of us attended the Hamilton County Legislative Breakfast last Friday, and the Hamilton County Business Issues Committee presented their 2016 legislative agenda. They had 4 education priorities, which were not mirroring ours totally, but actually quite in line with what we're pushing. So that was good to hear, too, because that just gives us power in numbers. And that's my report.
Thank you, Tricia. Questions from the board? Yes, Pam.
Yes, I've heard or been reading that CTB McGraw-Hill messed up really badly. We're going into Pearson next year. There's been talk that at the state level they may go to Park if they're getting rid of I-STEP. So I want to know what your take on Park is and whether we should even support that.
Well, I've not heard that they're looking to go to Park.
It's just now seeking out, yeah.
Well, one of the things, I mean, Park is an assessment for the Common Core.
Yes, I know.
Standards, and so.
And they were also talking about would we have been better off just staying with the, I mean, it's, anyway.
So right now, though, if we went to Park, that wouldn't align with our standards.
Right.
So.
Okay.
And I can tell you, we were unpacking Park before I came here in Illinois. We could not figure out logistically how we were going to administer that with the time allotment.
Right.
It's just so cumbersome. So I haven't heard anything about Park in Indiana. Not a single.
It was just coming out. I just read it today. So it's just in somebody downtown in their thoughts, like maybe this is something we ought to. No, that's why I want to.
They should let that idea du jour go.
Yeah, we might want to, make sure that they understand that's not a good idea.
Well, and it's interesting because the Park, like in Illinois, the Park results just came out. I mean, they're no quicker than, our results for I-STEP, really. So.
And Amy nailed it. I mean, we have different standards now as a result of going away from Common Core.
Well, we'll see how Pearson does.
Amy, I have a question for you. Have you had any communications from IDOE with regard to the rescoring and the scoring mishap with the I-STEP?
Not the mishap that, other than what we've read in the paper.
Okay, yes.
With that. But the rescoring has been completed. And so they did release the file to us yesterday. And then that'll be released to the parents. I believe it was supposed to be the 22nd of December. I think it's now January 8th.
Yeah.
It's moved to January 8th, where parents will then be able to go on the online site and be able to see their students' tests.
So will everybody who took the I-STEP, was it rescored for everybody or just those who requested a rescore?
The rescores were only for those that requested a rescore in the rescore window.
Okay, so those of us who did not request a rescore should have the same?
Not necessarily, because your original score did not include depending on the mode, whether they took an online version and also the form, students also received additional points because they determined that online and paper pencil were not at the same level of difficulty, and then the forms were not at the same level of difficulty. So depending on what form your student took or the mode that they took, you may receive between 1 to 9 points. So
we could do better, but we shouldn't do any worse.
No, we will not do any worse.
Any other questions? Well, wonderful. Only big announcement is that we will not meet again until 2016. Our first meeting will be January 11th. I hope everybody has a very safe and enjoyable break and a very happy New Year. And with that, we will adjourn our meeting. Thank you.